What does it mean to be a good person? Philosophers have debated this question for a millennia, but today we are going to ask a different question, a more unsettling one. Are we good because we choose to be good, or are we good because we believe someone is watching? Welcome to the Time Travelers Club's first ever podcast session. I am Farhan Shaikh, and today we are examining one of the most influential concepts in modern philosophy and sociology, the Panopticon. Today we are joined by two of our fellow students, Sandeep Gopi and Mohammad Tazim. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's a privilege to be part of this discussion.
Alright then, so let's begin. Sandeep, could you please explain the historical origins of the Panopticon?
Certainly. In 1785, the English philosopher and social theorist, may I add, Jeremy Bentham designed a revolutionary prison structure. He called it the Panopticon. Derived from the Greek words meaning all seeing, the design was circular, and in the center stood a guard tower, and around the perimeter were individual cells.
Hmm. So, what made this design distinctive then?
The prisoners could never determine whether anyone was actually inside the guard tower. Because, see, the windows were also designed in such a way that the prisoners could never see the guards, but the guards could see the prisoners. So the prisoners had to assume they were being watched all the time.
Ah, okay.
And this assumption produced a remarkable psychological effect. The prisoners began to police themselves. They complied with the rules not because they were being coerced, but because they believed that they might be observed. Bentham argued that this was the most efficient prison ever conceived, as there were few guards and there was total control.
Okay, then was the Panopticon ever constructed if it was this effective?
Actually, yes. A few institutions adopted similar designs, but the idea itself proved more influential than any building. It moved from a transition period of architecture to a more philosophical and sociological idea.
Okay. I mean, then that's where our discussion truly begins, then, right? So, Tazim, can you please explain how the Panopticon transitioned from a prison design to a philosophical concept?
Certainly, Farhan. In 1975, French philosopher Michel Foucault published a landmark work titled Discipline and Punish. In this book, he used Bentham's Panopticon as a metaphor for modern society. Foucault argued that we no longer needed prisons to control human behavior, as the threat of observation was sufficient.
Okay. Then, what institutions did Foucault identify as panopticons?
Many modern institutions such as schools, hospitals, factories, military barracks, as well as office buildings. In each case, there is a hierarchical structure. Someone has the authority to observe. Those below are aware of this possibility, so they modify their behavior accordingly.
May I also like to add, Foucault's arguments were subtle and powerful. He claimed that power in modern societies is not primarily exercised through violence or explicit coercion. Instead, it operates through visibility. The mere possibility of being seen shapes our actions, our thoughts, and ultimately our identities as well.
So, is Foucault suggesting that we have internalized the gaze of authority?
Precisely. The God Tower has moved inside our minds. See, we don't need anyone to actually watch us, we watch ourselves.
Well, then, that raises a profound philosophical question. If we are always watching ourselves, can we ever know our authentic selves? Hmm. So then let us move from philosophy to sociology. Tazim, how does the panopticon manifest in contemporary society?
You see, there are many examples of this in everyday life. Think about CCTV cameras in public places. They're everywhere, quietly watching. Whether someone is actually monitoring them all the time does not matter. as if presence itself alone changes how people behave. We drive more carefully, we avoid littering, and we think twice before breaking small rules. The simple feeling of being watched makes us aware of our actions. It, it, it's an invisible eye that reminds us of our responsibility to others and ourselves.
Consider the workplace as well. Many employers use software that tracks productivity, keystrokes, mouse movements, etc. Even when no supervisor is actually reviewing this data, employees are aware of its existence. They behave as if they were being watched at every moment.
That does make some sense. So what about social media then? Does that constitute a form of panopticon as well?
That's an excellent question, Farhan. Social media presents a unique form of observation. On one hand, we willingly place ourselves in the eyes of the others. We share photographs, express opinions, and often seek approval through likes and comments. On the other hand, we remain deeply aware that our actions are unseen and often quietly, and our audience is unseen and often quietly judgmental. It creates a strange balance between freedom and self consciousness, where we are both the performer and the observer of our own lives.
Consequently, we create our online personas as well. We do not post authentically, we post strategically. We ask ourselves, what will others think? Will this be the screenshotted? Will it be used against me? These questions are the direct product of panoptic logic.
Oh, wait. Have we become both the prisoner and the guard then?
That is a very astute observation. Yes,
Oh, then that kind of makes sense though. Hmm. Anyways, we are halfway through our discussion. The concept we have outlined is abstract but profoundly consequential. Coming up, we will address the ethical implications of the panopticon. Specifically, we will ask, is constant surveillance a price worth paying for social order? And what do we lose when we can never be certain that we are truly alone? We will also pose several questions to our guests that will require honest self reflection. So get ready for the upcoming parts. Let us now consider the ethical dimensions of the panopticon. Sandeep, I will begin with you. Is the panopticon necessarily a negative phenomenon? Could there be benefits to this form of social control?
see, that is a fair question. One could argue that the panopticon encourages prosocial behavior, and if people believe they are being watched, they are less likely to steal, cheat, etc. In this sense, surveillance functions as a deterrent to wrongdoing, and societies with higher levels of trust and lower levels of crime may benefit from the perception of accountability.
Sandeep, there's a significant counter argument to your assumption. The panopticon does not cultivate genuine virtue. It cultivates compliance. A person who refrains from stealing only because they fear being caught is not an honest person. They're a cautious person. There is a meaningful distinction between the both.
So the panopticon produces obedience, not morality?
Precisely, Farhan. True moral character requires freedom to choose wrongly. If that freedom disappears under constant surveillance, moral growth becomes limited. We do not truly learn to be good. We simply learn to appear good. Virtue has meaning only when it comes from choice, not when it's shaped entirely from fear of being watched.
It leads to a related concern. The panopticon may inhibit authenticity. If we are always performing for an invisible audience, we may lose touch with our genuine preferences, beliefs, and desires. We may construct a self that is acceptable to others, but itself alien to ourselves.
Oh. So the panopticon does not merely restrict behavior, it shapes identity. That explains why so many people who want to pursue their own career paths, want to be an artist, want to be something out of the box, truly just go up and go through normal jobs, become an engineer, a doctor, nothing out of the box really. or never approach their own dreams, their own identity. That makes sense.
Exactly. And that is why Foucault is considered so powerful. It is not cohesive in the traditional sense, it is productive. It produces particular kinds of subjects, compliant, self monitoring, and deeply uncertain of their own authenticity itself.
Oh, okay. Hmm. So now, at this point, we would like to pose several reflective questions to you guys. These questions are not intended to be uncomfortable, they're intended to be honest. Sandeep, if you're willing, if you could be certain that no one was watching you, no cameras, no consequences, no judgment whatsoever, would you behave differently than you do now? Please answer thoughtfully.
Hmm. See, if there was no one watching me and I truly understood that myself was alone, I would do all the things that I desire, be it be good, be it be bad, because the form of surveillance is not there anymore for me. Who do I have to be afraid of? There is no one to restrict me. So, morals, ethics for me personally wouldn't exist, as humans' entire existence depends on some sort of surveillance. At least for me, my understanding is that my character is built on others people assumptions. See, if I want to be in a friend group, for example, I would cater to their interests. Let's say if they like football, I would talk more about the part of me that likes football. So in my opinion, this is what would happen if no one was truly watching us.
Hmm. It's a beautiful answer, Sandeep. Tazim, what about you? The same question.
Yes, I believe I would behave somewhat differently, but perhaps not in dramatic ways. I think all of us would change slightly when we know that we are being observed. We become more careful, more polished, and sometimes less honest with ourselves. If I was certain that no one was watching, I would probably feel more freedom to make mistakes and to be less concerned with perfection and to express thoughts that I might otherwise keep private. However, I would like to believe that my core values will remain the same. Respect, responsibility, and integrity should not depend entirely on observation. The real test of character is what we do when no one is watching.
That's a beautiful answer again, Tazim. Even I want to answer, here is what I think. If no one was watching, I would not suddenly become a bad person. I would not steal or hurt anyone, but I would definitely be less disciplined. I would take shortcuts. I would say things without filtering them first. And here is the deeper point that actually proves the Panopticon works. Because the fact that I behave better when I think someone is watching means that my good behavior is not really mine. It is borrowed from the fear of being seen. So without the gaze, I would not be a different person. I would just be a more honest version of who I already am underneath. Thank you for your honesty, guys. These were not easy questions. But then we can't stop here, can we? Let me ask you a second question, Sandeep. Do you believe you would be a different person if you had grown up without the experience of constant observation?
See, first of all, I would like to say something on my part. The our character when we grow up as adults primarily depends on what we experienced in our childhood, let it be good or let it be bad. And this form of constant observation, if indeed it was not there, I feel it would likely make me a different person, because we as in our childhood we constantly learn new things, and at least in my experience 90% of those things comes from what others observe us. See, we are taught don't do this, don't do that, behave, all because of what? Because there are social norms, expectations placed on us, because others observe us. There's what do you call it? There's a ways to be somewhere. There, you have to dress properly when you're going out, etc. There are countless incidents like this. So if I wanted to answer pure naturally, I would say, of course, I would definitely be a different person if I had grown up without any experience of constant observation.
Perfect answer, Sandeep. Really liked it. Tazim, what about you?
Absolutely. Observation shapes personality more than we realize. From childhood, we are influenced by our parents, teachers, classmates, and society's expectations. We learn what is acceptable and what is not, often by adjusting ourselves to fit those expectations. Without constant observation, I think I might have been more spontaneous and perhaps more confident in expressing unpopular opinions. But at the same time, uh, observation teaches us discipline and social responsibility. So while I might have been freer, I might not have been wiser. In many ways, there is a balance between personal freedom and social influence.
Right. I liked it. I like the answer. Now, this brings us to the heart of the matter. The panopticon does not simply change what we do, it changes who we become, right? Now,
True.
we have covered the historical origins of the panopticon, its philosophical development through Foucault, and its sociological manifestations in contemporary life. Now we arrive at our final question. Sandeep and Tazim, here is the question we would like each of you to answer. And we ask our listeners to reflect on it as well. Given everything we have discussed, given that we can never be entirely certain whether we are being watched, and given that this uncertainty shapes our behavior and our identities, can we ever truly know ourselves? Or is the self always, to some degree, a performance for an invisible audience?
That
Sandeep?
is a very good question, Farhan, that you asked. And for this specific matter, I would like to quote a philosopher, rather draw from his ideas. He had once said that we for ourselves don't have a character of our own. Rather, it is shaped and molded by the expectations of others. See, when we are surrounded by our people, let it be our parents, our friends, etc., we each have different faces or versions of ourselves to be in front of them. And this I can say with a lot of confidence because I've seen a lot of people, and let us truly reflect on ourselves. When we stand in front of everyone, let's say our parents or our friends, do we behave the same way? That itself answers the question. We behave as if though cater to their interest and their expectations. So I would say a performance for an invisible audience is truly a character. Even though it not may be 100%, our true selves, we may not know the meaning of our true selves because we're constantly acting in front of others. My bad, not acting, but adjusting rather. That's the perfect word to say it. Adjusting ourselves to everyone around us. True selves is a question that we should really ponder on because when we truly think, when we're alone, and when we truly think about ourselves, we have so many questions, and that should fear us because that really leads us to a question if we even have a character of our own, or are we just acting for an invisible audience, of course.
Thank you, Sandeep, for the answer. Tazim, please go ahead.
Sure. I think the idea of a completely true self might be an illusion. We often imagine that somewhere beneath society, expectation, and performance, there exists a pure hearted, untouched identity waiting to be discovered. But perhaps we are not hidden beneath a performance, we are made through them. Human beings are social creatures. We exist in relation to others. The self is not found in isolation but in conversation, with family, with society, with power, and with memory. The way I behave with friends, teachers, and strangers might differ, but none of their selves are false. They are different reflections of the same person. In danger lies not in the danger lies not in the performance itself, but in forgetting that we are performing. When we become so concerned with being accepted that we lose the ability to ask what we genuinely believe, we risk becoming strangers to ourselves. So, can we truly lose ourselves? Perhaps not completely, but self-knowledge is not the destination. It's a continuous act of questioning. Is the courage to ask beneath all the roles we play? If no one expected anything of me, who would I choose to be?
That's a brilliant answer, Tazim. Hearing both of your answers, even I would like to offer my reflection as well. I believe we can know ourselves, not all at once, but in pieces. And here is the logic. The panopticon works only as long as we do not notice it. Once we become aware of it, once we realize that we are performing for an invincible audience, we can start to ask a simple question. Would I do this if no one was watching? If the answer is no, then that action is not really mine, it belongs to the gaze. So every time we ask that question honestly, we peel back one layer of performance. We may never reach a final, perfect self, but we can get closer. Self knowledge is not a destination, it is a practice. And the first step is simply admitting how much of what we do is done for an audience we cannot even see. There is no simple answer to this question. Perhaps that is the most honest conclusion we can offer. The Panopticon reveals something uncomfortable about the human condition. We are social creatures, we care about what others think, and we may never fully disentangle our authentic selves from our performed selves. We would like to express our sincere gratitude to Sandeep Gopi and Mohammad Tazim for joining us today. Their thoughtful contributions to have enriched this discussion considerably. To all listeners, we leave you with a question for reflection. Not a question we expect you to answer publicly, but a question worth carrying with you. In those moments when you believe no one is watching, who are you? If you are interested in reading further, I recommend Michael Foucault's Discipline and Punish and Jeremy Bentham's writings on the Panopticon, both of which are available in our school library and online. I am Farhan Shaikh. Thank you for watching. This has been the Time Travelers Club for you. Thank you.